iPhone 7 Plus 1 year later experience. That video is coming up right now. Let's go. So what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology, and welcome to my 1 year later experience with the iPhone 7 Plus. Now, if you tuned into the channel yesterday, I did make a video titled my iPhone 7 1 year later experience, and a lot of people requested, Nick, go ahead and do the iPhone 7 Plus 1 year later. And we give the people what they want to see, so here we are, iPhone 7 Plus 1 year later. So the iPhone 7 Plus, I want to begin with its body, build, and design. So without talking about, the specific specifications that's going to come with this guy, we talked about enough of that in prior reviews on the channel. You get 2.5D glass here. You get 5.5 inch 1080p display here. Very thin design. I think it's like 7.6 millimeters or something like that on the sides. About 170 grams or so here. So it's not the heaviest phone in the world, but the iPhone 7 Plus, in terms of its design, in my experience, has been, when it first came out, the jet black was a novelty. It really did look pretty different from a lot of phones that was out because it was polished and it was like an anodized aluminum. It was very hyped up, but we're going to talk more about that later. The dual camera setup was kind of new, so the design, while kind of an older design, it looks very similar to the 6S Plus. There was a few things that made this phone a little bit desirable, and I think still desirable to this day, and many other manufacturers have kind of copied Apple iPhone 7 Plus with their dual camera. But for me, the design has always been a little bit too large. I think it's a little bit too wide here on the iPhone 7 Plus. The chin and top are they're a little bit thick. It's not as noticeable here on the black edition, but definitely a thick bezel here on the top and the bottom. So overall, this design, it has been, to me, it's been premium for sure, but it doesn't seem groundbreaking or nothing like that. So on a scale of 1 to 10, I give this design a solid 9 out of 10. I'm going to take off a point because it's just not quite as good as something like what's on the Samsung Galaxy series of smartphones right now. In addition, phones like the LG G6 to me have out-designed this phone, but this is still a premium, very nice phone, and I think a lot of people have liked it because it's sold extremely well here for Apple. So it's still a really nice design, and if you decide to pick up one now, it's not really going to feel outdated or anything like that. Well, at least until the iPhone 8 or 7S Plus drops with their glass backs. So we'll see about that. Now let me talk a little bit about the display. So this is a 1080p panel here for the iPhone 7 Plus, and I've always actually enjoyed this panel. This is one of those cases where, just because it's 1080p, it's not that bad actually. It's pretty sharp, and it gets very bright, and the colors are very well balanced here for the iPhone 7 Plus. So this display is going to get super bright, and over my experience, I've really enjoyed that. Now, it doesn't get super bright in sunlight. There is like other features on other phones that will allow you to have daylight mode. I don't see that here for the 7 Plus, so I have had struggles from time to time seeing this thing in the direct sunlight. But other than that, in any decently dimly lit area, you're going to be able to see this just fine. And it's very color accurate when it comes to the P3 rating, and that actually is not just marketing hype. That is actually true. It is very color accurate. It's got more of a warmish hue to the display, and just reading things on display have been very easy on the eyes. And this is coming from somebody who's always wearing glasses, and the eyes ain't the best in the world. You can see definitely, I'm reading this article on Pseudoscience, for example, you can see that the text and everything is just very well balanced. No matter what angle you put it on, it's a very nice display to read on. In addition to that, having these thicker bezels, there is one benefit to it. It's when you're watching, movies or YouTube videos like the ones here on this channel, you can see everything just a little bit clearer here. So if I go to my videos and check out the video from yesterday, it's easy to, let's go ahead and get in there. It's easy to hold the sides here, these thick bezels, and see everything clearly. So it's a very nice display overall. I still think that I would like a full screen display, which we're probably going to see. Everybody's waiting for that. But overall, it's a really good video experience with this display as well. This comes in at 401 pixels per inch. Phones have had this for years. Apple's had it on the iPhone 6 Plus even for years. But it's still plenty sharp enough for most people's eyes. You can't really see past that. So display has been enjoyable to say the least. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to give it a solid 9 out of 10. I cannot give it 10, even though a lot of, display rating sites are going to say, oh, it's one of the most color accurate displays on the planet. I still can see when a display is not 2K. To my eyes, I can still see that. A 2K display still looks sharper, and this is not, putting it at the top of the top for me. This is slightly under the top of the top. This is the best 1080p display I have seen though. Now let's get into software here. So the software, of course, iOS 10, which came with it. I'm running 10.3.3 right now. iOS 11 is going to be coming to this phone, and this is obviously the most enjoyable feature I think for most users here is iOS 10. Everything just works, and with the combination of the A10 CPU over a year's time, I got all these applications on here. I do things frequently, and I see no stutter on this phone ever. I can't even remember the last time it lagged, if it ever lagged. I don't think this phone has ever lagged, not even one time since I've used it. Now, I think it did reboot one time in my past, 8 months or so of having this phone. It rebooted once, so extremely reliable performance here on iOS 10. We're gonna have to see if it gets better or worse on iOS 11 when I review it for the iPhone 7 Plus when it does drop later this year. But other than that, software is slick, smooth, and very buttery. So anybody who's thinking about getting one of the better, softwares for your phone, this is gonna be it here. And having iOS on this larger canvas allows you to go into landscape mode, which has always been enjoyable to say the least. So definitely really dig the software here. I do think that Apple can make better use of this larger display. Maybe on the Plus model, give you a split screen mode on your phone. That would be really nice to see, or some, productivity enhancements due to the larger canvas. So yeah, keep that in mind. That's one thing I would ask for on a Plus model to see in the future here. But other than that, we can talk now about the cameras. So the cameras here, these are much hyped up cameras here. And to be honest with you, I've kind of been disappointed with the second lens. I thought it was a novelty. It was beautiful when I first got it to test out portrait mode and stuff like that, but I don't find myself really using it all that much. I just find myself using the regular camera, and there's nothing wrong with the regular camera. The regular camera is solid. It's a very good camera. You can see, look at the picture quality right there. So you're going to have a great camera here no matter how you slice it. This is a great camera here in the iPhone 7 Plus. I have enjoyed the 2x optical zoom here on that lens, but the thing that was hyped up the most, the portrait mode on the iPhone 7 Plus, just didn't do it for me. It never turned out the way I desired it. I could just get a better effect with my regular camera, and for them to kind of make it seem like it's going to replace a DSLR or a camera like that, that's not happening, guys. It's just not ready yet to do that on phones. They're still good enough to replace point and shoot cameras, but when we're talking about interchangeable lens systems on other cameras, I don't see that happening just yet. But overall, camera, very solid, two 12 megapixel cameras. The zoom functionality I have enjoyed, but just the portrait mode, which was severely hyped up, I didn't. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'm giving this camera a solid 10 out of 10, just because it hits the marks on where it matters most, and that's the main camera. And as far as a dual camera, I'd have to give that a solid 8 out of 10. I'll take off 2 points because I don't find blur to be that great. I think a wide angle lens setup would have been better here on the second lens here for the iPhone 7 Plus. And Galaxy Note 8 actually dropped a new dual camera setup. We're gonna have to compare it to this one to see if it's gotten better, but it's a very similar effect, so I don't know how useful that's gonna be either. But now let's talk about the battery life here for the 7 Plus. I've used this phone for a very long time, and I gotta be real with you guys. This is the phone I'm grabbing every time when I need a reliable battery performance. But that is to say, if it is charged up to 100%, because as you can see right here, it is for this video. If you don't have this thing charged, it takes forever to charge. So there's a catch there. So it's a really great battery life, but if it's not charged, you're going to be waiting a very long time to charge this phone. So as long as you keep the thing charged, this is an extremely long-lasting, reliable battery phone. Probably the best I have that doesn't have a removable battery, because if I got a removable battery phone, I could just swap batteries out though. But for just soldered-in batteries, 2,900 milliamps here on the 7 Plus. This has been my go-to phone for taking out for battery life, and that's even over the Galaxy S8 Plus, which has a 3,500 milliamp hour battery. It was at first, the S8 Plus was better, but over time it hasn't been quite as good after installing all my apps as the iPhone 7 Plus. So really great battery life here after 1.5 years of using it. And when you add the low power mode here on the 7 Plus, we get even better battery life here. If you want to know more about the battery life, I did an all-day battery test here on the iPhone 7 Plus. You could check that out, link down below in the description, where I went around the city of Chicago and just really showed you how it performs in your day day-to-day life. Now, in terms of performance, we've tested this phone 1,001 times on this channel. We all know it just flies through everything. 3 gigs of RAM, as well as an A10 CPU. This thing is just super blazing quick. I don't care what you download, what you throw at it. It runs it like a boss. So this thing is fast, fast, fast. It's a road runner. Let's just put it that way. The iPhone 7 Plus is a boss in speed. I'm not going to talk much more about that. There's 1,001 videos you can watch on the channel where I compared this to other phones, and it pretty much won every time. I think there's only one phone that beat it, and that was the OnePlus 5. But other than that, super quick phone here in the iPhone 7 Plus. Talking about storage, I did decide to go with the 128 gigabyte model. I've been very happy with my choice. I've taken over 1,000 photos on here. There's like 70 plus applications on my iPhone 7 Plus, and the storage is got 98 gigs. I never even came close to depleting the storage on this phone. I'm sure you would if you're using it for the camera all the time. I use a separate camera, so that didn't do it for me. But overall, very fast storage too. So when I go ahead and click AirDrop to my Macintosh computer, the storage just transferring everything is just super quick. And if you just plug in a lightning port, it's super quick as well. Now, if you go to 32 gig edition, that might be a little bit different, but this phone just snaps through everything when it comes to file transfer. And that's important when you are taking things from your phone to your computer, which I think a lot of people on these more premium phones are doing. So I want to talk now a little bit about gaming. So I don't have my games installed here right now. I took them off because they were kind of distracting me, but the gaming performance on here has been great. When you go ahead and you put this phone in landscape, like I say, just because I don't like those bezels for the design, they're actually kind of functional for gaming. So they do feel like a little portable, PlayStation even here for the iPhone 7 Plus, and it runs games great, guys. So my gaming experience has been great on here. Now, what about the audio? The audio is an area that I do want to talk about before wrapping up this 1 year later experience, and it's been one of my favorite parts of this phone. Brings me back to the HTC days. Are still going to enjoy it, and I think the iPhone 8 is going to improve on this quite a bit, but at the same time, if you're buying this at a reduced price point, you're going to really love the camera. So the audio is coming out of the front and the bottom. So the speaker audio has been great here for the iPhone 7 Plus, although even the headphone jack not being there, the audio that comes through the phone, whether you're using Bluetooth headphones or even through the dongle, is quite good as well. So overall, the audio is solid. I cannot knock it too much on the audio department. Now, let's talk about another area I want to say about the iPhone 7 Plus that I really enjoyed. This is like an extension of your other Apple products, and it gets really close to like an iPad. So if you have an iPad, I still don't think this can replace an iPad, just because watching videos is just so enjoyable on an iPad. But if you're using an iPad, you're using a Mac, and then you come down your iPhone 7 Plus, it just works super well, and everything is nice and large, and it feels just very in sync. It's like an extension of your other products here. Same goes with pretty much every other iPhone, but if you're using a smaller, iPhone, this one actually feels more like an extension of your iPad. So if you're an iPad user and you got this feels very similar, and coming down to it, it's going to feel like a very nice experience. If you're doing something on your iPad, you have to leave the house, or you're doing something at the library or you're at class or whatever, you're on your iPad, and then you get on the train, get on the bus, whatever you're doing, you come to your iPhone 7 Plus, it's going to feel like just an extension of that. And that's a very nice experience. So I wanted to put that out there as well. In terms of calling and texting, this phone has been, pretty phenomenal in that regard as well. So if I go to YouTube, for example, here, and I just type, the keyboard, very wide, very easy to type with. I mean, if you make errors on this keyboard, then I don't know what's going on, because this is a very accurate keyboard, and it just responds to your tap like instantaneously. Now, no, it doesn't have swipe. The iOS keyboard doesn't give you that, but this is one of the best typing experiences I've seen on any iOS device ever, if not probably the best typing experience on any iOS device in the iPhone 7 Plus. So keep that in mind. Now, in terms of calling, I spoke about this in my iPhone 7, and this one is very similar. I've had dropped calls. Signal's not the best, so this hasn't been my favorite calling experience phone. If you're heavy into the calling game and you're using that feature all the time, you're looking for the best signal strength, this phone is going to get the job done. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to sit up here and say you're not going to be able to have a great phone experience with the iPhone 7 Plus, but it actually does better when you use the Lightning, speaker phone to talk to people, use Bluetooth headset. It doesn't work great just talking through this earpiece. So I actually didn't like this phone too much in the calling experience regard. So I want to wrap this up by talking about some hyped up things with the iPhone 7 Plus that I think were actually worth the hype. So number one has been the Taptic engine. So the Taptic feedback with the fingerprint scanner, it was very hyped up at the event, and it's been worth it. You know, it's a very nice experience, and going back to a clicky home button definitely feels outdated. This is super quick, and it just feels very premium. And it also plays into the OS, so if you hit 3D touch, you feel a little vibration. If you pull down a notification tray, you feel a little vibration down here. It just makes the experience seem so polished here for the iPhone 7 Plus. So keep that in mind. Another hyped up thing that I think did live up to it was the 2.5D glass. It feels very smooth off the edges, and I really do like the 2.5D glass here for the iPhone 7 Plus. It's been one of my favorite features. It gives it a seamless look here on the front, especially on these black editions, the jet black as well as the matte black. And another thing has been the A10 CPU. This is a CPU Apple touted as being, so much ahead of competitors. And I agree to an extent, basic tasks, competitors are at the same level. But in terms of efficiency, this seems like one of the most efficient processors I've ever seen on any smartphone, and it might be up there in the top, 3. So this is a really great processor. The A10 has lived up to the hype. It's super quick, very reliable. If you buy this phone today, it's going to last for years to come here. Now let's talk about hyped up things here that I don't think deserved the hype. And that is, number one, I talked about it earlier a little bit, the dual camera. I think the dual camera definitely is cool to have. I think they can implement maybe a triple lens camera where it's going to give us a wide angle and this telephoto. That would be pretty sick to see that, but I don't think that's going to happen this year. But I don't think this lived up to the hype. If it wasn't there, this phone still would have been awesome. So let's just keep that in mind. The dual camera didn't live up to the hype. Is it nice to have? Would I rather have it than not have it? Sure. But I'm not like super crazed about it. Like, I don't pick this phone up and go out and be like, oh yeah, I got my dual camera with me. That matters so much to me. But this is just my experience. You might differ. I mean, having it is, I could go out with the S8 Plus without the dual camera and I'm fine. So this is a little bit hyped. As a matter of fact, when I went on a trip to LA earlier this year, I didn't bring the iPhone 7 Plus at all, and I didn't miss not having that zoom functionality. So keep that in mind as well. That's one thing for me that didn't live up to the hype, was dual camera. That might be different for you though. This is just my perspective, my experience. Take what you will, take what you won't, and have a great day. Another thing I didn't like about the iPhone 7 Plus was its no headphone jack. Now, I know this is something that everybody talks about. Oh, no headphone jack on the iPhone 7 Plus. Some people will argue, well, Bluetooth, everybody has a Bluetooth headset. Not true. Not everybody has one of those. I just think that the audio that comes through an actual headphone jack sounds better. It's not about not having one. I easily can adapt to having a Bluetooth setup. The thing is, the audio fidelity that comes through an actual headphone jack is still this industry standard. You can go check the research. The audio that comes through this thing has definitely decreased over even older phones like the iPhone 4S, for example, which had some pretty killer audio through its headphone jack. So keep that in mind. That is one thing I don't think live up to the hype. And I find myself, if I forget this and I'm out, I'm like, crap, now I'm stuck using these speakers. So if you don't have your Bluetooth headset or this, you're kind of like stuck with using your speakers. And another thing was the jet black edition. This was really hyped up, this unicorn of a phone. Do not buy this phone. I've regretted every minute of it. This phone has met its best friend, the microfiber tile. I'm always doing this all day long. And I will never buy a jet black phone again. It scratches very easily. It got dented up. This material is not even close to the grade of a material. And I think in terms of longevity, for long review purposes or even long use purposes, is the iPhone 6s Plus I have, which is an aluminum back. So that's pretty much it here on the iPhone 7 Plus. These are my total experiences over using this thing for about a year now. Now, what do you guys think? Drop your comments down below. That's pretty much going to wrap it up here for me. The iPhone 7 Plus is going on 1 year later, and this has been my experience. Do you guys think you're going to pick one up still? Is it really a great phone for you? I think overall, on a scale of 1 to 10, this phone gets a solid 8.5 out of 10. I took off 1.5 points because it's just not a perfect phone. There are a few things here and there, but really, this is a world-class smartphone here, and I got to put it in probably the top 2 phones in the world you can buy right now. So keep that in mind. Even though there were some things I didn't like, it's still a boss. It's still phenomenal. So what are your takes on it? Drop them down below. If you found this video helpful, enjoyable, go ahead and click the like button for me. Share it with a friend. Subscribe to the channel for more tech videos like this. Nick here, helping you to master your technology. Be sure to be well, and peace.